Well, Dennis Quaid is one of the most famous and prolific actors in the world. He starred in more than 70 movies. His latest is a biopic called Reagan, charting the great former president's journey from childhood to the White House via Hollywood. He's a big star with big opinions on the state of the world today, and he joins me in the Uncensored studio. When you play a part like Reagan, it's an iconic role, right? Yeah. It's one of the only 46 people to ever be president of the United States. And Reagan in particular always comes in the top 5 most popular presidents ever. How do you even start to prepare for that? And how freaky a challenge is it?
That's a good question because like I said, he was my favorite president, and I didn't want to do an impersonation of him. In fact, I turned down, I didn't say no, but it took a long time to take the role because I was overwhelmed by it. It really sent the fear down my spine, which is an indication that I should probably do that because it gets me out of my comfort zone. But it took me a while because I guess I idolized him a bit, and I didn't want to bring that into it because I think we do tell a story, warts and all, in a certain sense. He certainly wasn't a perfect human being, but it's everybody in the world pretty much knows who he is. It's like playing Muhammad Ali in a way, and so to go about doing it, for one thing, I lived through it. And the other, then I was into YouTube is so good for that kind of thing because you can get everything there, from the videotape.
So you just studied old tapes?
Yeah, I went from the outside in with that, and then I read several books on him. Like Reagan had, he kind of had a kind of a crooked grin, and there was, what that was, those nerves were dead there. So that has something to do with what's on the inside of a person. And I like the way they walk, the way, the way they groom themselves, all of that says something about the inside of a person.
He had a kind of natural authority, I always felt, Reagan.
Yeah.
He was someone who didn't struggle with the role of being the most powerful man in the world. He just had a sort of ease with being an authority, I always felt.
Yeah, I think he learned that in Hollywood for being an actor, because they would groom their actors in the studio back then about the way you walk, the way you hold a cigarette, the way
maybe the confidence.
Yeah, the confident air. And, he himself has admitted that acting really helped him.
Yeah,
especially in the negotiation with the Russians, like Star Wars, for instance,
which was all a total scam.
It was a total scam. It was like we didn't have anything like that. The movie came out in 76, I believe it was, and it was laser beams going, destroying things, missiles or whatever. We didn't have any of that, and Reagan said we did.
But he was able to convince the Russians.
He convinced them at least 90%. That we did have it. And then I even doubled down and said, we'll share it with you.
Yeah.
And they still wouldn't go for it. But it did cause them to, and they had already been doing that, going military spending, went through the roof of the Soviet Union, and Reagan's
$30 billion US.
His strategy all along was to outspend them and bankrupt them.
Right.
And that's really what brought the Soviet Union down.
Along
with the Pope and Lech Walesa, of course, too. But
yeah. When you look at what's happening now with the resurgence of Russia, as many people see it, in an axis with China, with Iran, are you worried as an American about where this is all going?
Of course I am. I am. I think the world is very, very dangerous place right now. And could get set off and a misunderstanding occur, and there's hardly any time to think a minute about it. And I'm really concerned what's going on in the Middle East, even on our own borders here. And people don't seem as informed as a general rule as back 30, 40 years ago.
Well, I think they're getting selective information.
Yes,
Like
from
their-
social media.
and from the algorithm they build up,
Yeah.
from TikTok with the short
Right.
versions of news, often slanted a certain way.
Yeah, and they're getting, we're getting, our own point of view, our own beliefs are getting coughed back at us.
Right.
And I'm not sure how good that is. And then that's also reflected in our government. We really need to remind ourselves of the better nature of our own angels and learn to work together and disagree, but have a civil conversation about it. That 30, 40 years ago, we had liberal Republicans, we had conservative Democrats,
Yes.
and there was much more across the aisle.
You voted for both sides.
Yeah, Reagan and Tip O'Neill, they would get together a couple of times a week at 5 o'clock and over at the White House and talk it over. And and then they were bitter enemies during during work hours, but they worked it out.
What do you think of Trump?
I myself, I think I think I'm going to vote for him.
Really?
Yeah, in the next election. Yes, I am.
Are you ready for the blowback?
Well, yeah.
Which inevitably comes with Trump?
I think in this election, everybody's got to, I think they're going to take a side or whatever, but it just seems to me, it just makes sense. I was ready not to vote for Trump until what I saw is more than politics. I see a weaponization of our justice system.
Yeah.
And a challenge to our Constitution, us as Americans, that I don't think we're going to have. And, Trump is the most investigated person probably in the history of the world. And they haven't been able to really get him on anything.
And this whole Stormy Daniels thing, to me, is so kind of pathetic. I mean, whatever happens, as we sit here now, that we're going to find out in a few days whether he's guilty or not guilty. I don't think it matters.
It doesn't.
If anything, if he's found guilty, it'll probably help him more.
Yeah, even the way you just said it made it seem like that trial, or guilty or not guilty, is about Stormy Daniels,
Right.
which it's not.
No, it's not.
And in fact, what is the crime? I still can't figure it out.
Well, the
crime, neither can they, because they haven't said what it is. They took a misdemeanor that had run out of its time and turned it somehow, trying to turn it into a felony, and but they won't even say what that is.
Do you have to like Trump to vote for him?
No.
Do you like him personally?
Well, look, I was in the last. It is in the last campaign, and in 16, and in 20, I found myself going, "Oh, please don't do that. Please don't say that." It's like these things have come out of his mouth, and but as president, the only thing I liked about Trump was everything he did.
Right.
What he did with Korea, with Rocket Baby, the way he defeated ISIS in 3 weeks. People don't even remember it had happened so fast. How he stood up for us overseas, and China, and the way he responded to China. He stands up to people, and that's what makes him a leader, rather than what I kind of compare it to what was going on in Jimmy Carter's administration, where we were trying to be everybody's friend and pal. And there's some evil people and bad actors in this world. And so, people might call him an asshole, but he's my asshole.
Right. No, I get that.
Because he's. I'll tell you one true thing about him is that I really feel that he is working for the American people. That's what he's all about. And I do believe that to be true and sincere.
And is Biden simply too old? Is that the biggest problem for him?
I don't feel he's at the helm.
Right.
I don't feel he's there. And I feel that he says things to get votes, not that he truly believes in them. And now I'm really going to get some blowback. But that's the way I feel. And at the same time, to everybody who is going to vote for Biden, I mean, I hope we can all learn to have a conversation about, where we are as Americans, that we all live in the same country. And it doesn't have to be the end of the world, whoever is elected.
Yeah, because when I was young and first started going to my local pub, we would all have huge arguments after a few pints. But the idea we'd fall out with each other over it never crossed our minds.
Right.
We would just argue about what was in the news, and then we'd have a few more pints and we'd go home and we'd shake each other and give each other a hug. That ability to respect someone's opinion even when you don't agree with them just seems to have disappeared from this generation. It's like you either agree with me or I have to not just ostracize you, I have to destroy you. You must be cancelled.
That seemed to me to start back kind of in the 90s. Reagan was called a warmonger, by the way, by the Democrats that voted for him. And, some of the people still, there's this animosity there. But it really started in the 90s politically with the Republicans going after the Clintons, going after Clinton, especially in 96, even before the Monica Lewinsky thing, when the pledge came in. And I do believe he was treated a bit unfairly, and that seemed just for politics. But that back and forth just became
worse and worse,
and more of a divide. And I guess everybody had to get their way. And remember, the government was shutting down like every other week back during the Clinton administration. By that, and it just seemed to have gotten worse.